Welcome everybody. This is Steady Mobbin'. This is episode 554 rather, and we are counting this time. Today, guys, we have a very special guest. We have, I like to say, a pioneer when it comes to Canadian hip hop. I want to also mention that this man has been active for close to 30 years now, and he has not left his foot off the pedal. He has been grinding hard for the last 30 years. Ladies and gentlemen, we have Danny O in the building.
Yes, sir. Big respect, fellas. Thank you, man.
Make some noise. Where's the?
Yeah.
Not today.
There's no button. There's no.
Not today. I know. I'm like, I was thinking to myself, I should have told you, but it's all good. But I'm glad that you pulled up. It's been a long time. We were going back and forth getting the dates right, but we finally did it.
We did, and I appreciate it a lot, man.
No sweat. We try to make some time, and it's very hard because we're pivoting how we do our media now.
Right.
But when it comes to Steady Mobbin', we try to get people who have things to say in the studio.
Dope. Well, I definitely appreciate the fact that you guys don't sleep on people who have things to say, and that you continue to rep for the culture. And artists like me have been doing it for 33 years.
Wow. That's a flex.
Sorry.
That's a flex.
Oh man, I'm sorry.
It's just crazy because it's the month of May, and I'm just one of those always keep track of anniversary things. So I technically feel like I got my start when I was on Electric Circus.
So I was gonna get there.
And that was in May of '91. So
God damn.
that's the math.
You were rapping then?
Yeah, I entered a contest. So this is the oldest footage that exists of me, to my knowledge, in the world. Like, my daughter has her whole life on my phone, but I don't have any, you know what I'm saying? I'm too old to have video. So the first video that I'm aware in existence, as far as the youngest I am, is a 13-year-old on Electric Circus. It was a rap-off contest. Shouts to my brother Lindo P. We formed this duo called Partners in Rhyme. Went on there with a song called Can't Test Me, which was just me imitating Big Daddy Kane, trying to be the next Little Kane.
You had the high top too,
I had the
right?
high top and everything. Oh, yeah. Exactly. Right down to the haircut. And we won. So that's literally was May of '91. So it has been a 33-year journey.
Dude, you got some really supportive parents in that case, man. They let you out of the house at 13.
It's interesting you say that. I did, but yes and no. Before we went on, air, we were talking about how, we're now the dudes looking at music going, that's trash. My parents thought so too. My dad was a supporter of my music, not a fan. My mom's a supporter, not a fan. Like they're not hip hop people. But it wasn't even at 13 because Electric Circus was an afternoon show. It's when I started doing shows, 14, 15. I already was opening up for the likes of Pete Rock and CL Smooth and House of Pain and Redman. My manager at the time was a concert promoter. So I got put on those shows. And I was coming home late at 15 and hearing yelling and like, where you come home so late? So I was grinding from them times. Yeah. And I can't even believe that much time has passed.
I got to ask you, how the hell did you get on Electric Circus in '91? Because that was like the thing. To be on television back in those days was a big deal.
It was a huge deal, yeah. And I love those days too, man. God bless all, Master T and Michael Williams and everybody who put the rap cities and the soul in the cities and the demixes in place. But even before all that, Electric Circus was just holding a contest. Now, for any like Toronto history buffs, it wasn't their first contest. The first contest they had, rap contest, was for MC Hammer tickets. I didn't sign up. The dude who ended up winning that was a dude named Frank Morell, and he ended up putting out a video with a group called Brothers from the Ghetto and Simply Majestic. If those names ring a bell to anybody, that was sort of the result of this guy winning this rap-off contest. Shouts to Starting From Scratch because he was actually part of that movement, and that's how long I've known him because of that. So when the second rap-off contest came around, it was for LL Cool J tickets. I was like, okay, I'm entering this contest. As much as I like LL, he was on his Mama Said Knock You Out tour. For me, it was the last guy you won and put out a video. This is my shot. So I actually went to Lindo P's crib, and I had never been inside a studio before. I never had beats made for me. I knew nothing about nothing. And all he did was mix a record back and forth on his ones and twos that I could rhyme over. We submitted a cassette, and that cassette was selected out of I don't know how many hundred, or it was 100 something, not even that many by today's standards. And 10 artists were chosen to perform at a club the night before. 2 of the 10 got chosen. We were one of the 2, and we won the next day. It was a phone-in contest. So there's nothing was online. Okay, this was all a phone-in votes. Yeah, that's how it went down.
Wow. We had a great conversation before we started the show. And the thing I hate but like is, having people who come here with a vast hip-hop knowledge base, which is you, because we spoke for an hour and we covered so much ground. So I don't know which direction I should go. Should I go there hip-hop? Should I go Vigilante? Should I talk about the state of hip-hop right now? Should I go into lyricism? Should I talk Big Pun, Biggie?
We can talk all of it, man.
Okay, so
go in whatever order you like.
Is lyricism dead?
Oh, man, I'm going to definitely say no, especially because part of the conversation we had, the podcast before the podcast, well, we're talking about lyricism. And, most recently, obviously, everyone was all up on the Drake versus Kendrick thing. I think what I like about this record still existing in modern day hip hop is that it brings focus and attention to lyrics, right? You might like the songs, you might not, but as opposed to what's a banger, what's rocking in the clubs and all that, we're listening to lyrics.
Right.
Yes.
And diss tracks are about what the one dude has to say about the other dude. We also discussed Eminem off air and like how he's lyrically one of the absolute craziest, dopest spitters and writers ever. When you have a conversation about lyricists, it takes people to understand lyricism. Because too often people get into these hip-hop conversations and they're arguing something other than what the topic is. So they're going to diss Eminem for that reason or say so-and-so doesn't sell as many records or whatever the criteria is for what's dope. But if you are talking lyricism, you need to be able to understand rhyme patterns. You need to be able to understand cadence, syllable counts, and where they're placed on the beat is stuff we were talking about. So there's things that Eminem, for example, says that go over people's heads because he does do it fast and they haven't heard everything. So we were reading some of it as we were listening to it. And it's like the not just the syllable count, but the phrasing, his word choices, they're not simple. So he has a vocabulary. So dope lyricists have vocabularies. They have flow. So in order to spit, you can't just pen bars and go, oh, I came up with some dope shit. Like how you place it on the beat matters. Yes. Right? So flow comes into it. Your ability to spit something that is sensible and also substance filled. So some people will rate lyricists by what they have to say. Let me stop you there
because one of the main pushbacks when it comes to Eminem is he doesn't say anything. He just rhymes a bunch of random shit. So he'll talk about fallopian tubes and then, stabbing the girl in the toe.
And he'll be one of the few rappers who will use fallopian tubes in a verse. And you could make that argument depending on the record that you're talking about. But as we discussed, there are other records where he has discussed. I mean, we talked about Mosh, where he talked about the George Bush administration.
Darkness, Toy Soldier.
Yes. He's talked about his own personal issues with substance abuse and stuff.
Absolutely. Stan is another
Stan is a classic because of the story that he tells, and obviously, its relation to him as an artist and his foray into the world of music and how he became a star. So he does have substance. Look for those records and you'll find them. He does have insane bars. Look for those. We brought up Yaya from his Music to Be Murdered By record, which has Royce and Black Thought
on it.
So look who he's rolling with. Look at the artists. You know what I'm saying?
EPMD is another one.
Yes, that was on the
King's Disease
2, the Nas album. So he's doing records with Nas, and he's spitting these So again, I'm going to just throw those two out there for all of the Eminem doubters. As I said earlier, right? I have this English major state of mind. Here's my thesis. Here's my evidence. Thesis: Eminem is one of the greatest lyricists of all time. Evidence: Yaya and EPMD 2. Read the lyrics while you're listening to him, and I promise you, you will have a very difficult time doing it yourself.
Absolutely.
Without the beat playing or with the beat playing, where he lays it. And he says a lot. And one of the things that he proves is that he himself is a hip-hop enthusiast and historian, because this guy's mentioning man's names that people forgot. Man's like Steezo and 3 Times Dope are listed in the bars that we're discussing. So,
and to be clear, saying that you don't hear Eminem in the hood or in the club is not a good argument. Okay? We're talking lyricism. Lyrics.
Now, while we're on lyrics, content.
Yeah.
Over the last couple of weeks, I was listening a lot more of your music, and I noticed that you weren't really into the boastful hip hop. You know, like, well, you are pretty boastful, but
yeah.
you weren't into like the shining and bling bling kind of thing. It's you were rapping your ass off.
No
you
doubt.
Know what I mean? And where do you grab that from? Like, where do you get that inspiration from?
Well, firstly, what we were also saying before the podcast started is when I got into hip hop, my holy trinity is Big Daddy Kane, Cool G Rap, and Rakim.
Okay.
So I was on Electric Circus doing a song called Can't Test Me. At 13, my whole mindset was, you can't test me. I'm the dopest MC.
Right.
So to me, it all comes down to what is your foray into hip hop? What brought you to the dance? Why do you love it? For different people have different reasons. At the time, I always quote PMD from Crossover in that lyric where he goes, still I haven't seen one rapper living comfortably. That was the early 90s. Now we've seen so many rappers living comfortably that people enter the world of hip hop thinking of stardom, fame, and riches.
Right.
I didn't. It didn't exist yet. So loving lyricism brought me to the dance, and that's what I aspired to. So that's number one. Number two is I feel like hip hop as a culture is such that it's about realistic self-expression. So again, without all of the money and the different things that make it seem cool to be part of it, I was just part of it because it was real to me. How I express myself is my honest self. I wasn't, the world of ghostwriters and stuff wasn't me. I had to write my own lyrics. So that's my mindset. So my mindset is from the place of this is as real as it gets. So is it real for me to ride the dopest car in my video that I obviously don't own and wear clothing I don't own and jewelry I don't own? Like, that's never been part of who I am as a person, so it's not.
But Daniel, people would say you got to fake it till you make it, right? Come on, Daniel, get with the program.
You remind me of a lot like Classified.
Right.
I would say the reason why I'm saying that is because they don't you and him don't care about the facade.
No.
It's all about actual art.
Yeah.
Now, has hip hop been good to you?
Yes and no, right? And the yes side of it is because here I am all these years later. We're talking about 33 years, and even as it comes out my mouth, I think that's insane. And as I was saying off air, Vigilante, my most recent album, is by far the best record I've ever made. So I feel like hip hop has been good to me in the sense that it's given me a sense of purpose and who I am as a person as well as an artist. I don't feel I express myself better than when I'm rhyming. And I love hip hop so much. People know me for the Dear Hip Hop record. I meant it then, I mean it now. Like, I love hip hop so much that, it invigorates me, man. So it's been good to me in that I have learned throughout the course of my career not to stick around because it's going to make me rich. It's going to make me famous. It's going to get me girls. Like, I love it. So it's been good to me because I still love it, and I feel the love. You know what I'm saying? So no matter what happens, and listen, I've had my ups and downs. I tell people all the time, I feel like I've had two careers. One career that sort of ended in the mid-2000s because my mindset had to change. I was the guy, remember the mad rapper and all that kind of, I was that dude. Like, why do people like this whack shit? And got vexed at people's opinions. Then I refound.
Could you just? It's been a while, and we're Canadian, they're American, or whatever. Who made you feel that way?
So we're talking. So my second album, See No Evil, Hear No Evil, dropped in 2004, and I remember that was in the era. It's funny, we were mentioning this name for other reasons off air, but like when Puffy and the Bad Boy, the glistening.
That shit turned you off.
The shiny suit era.
It became a thing where, I don't like this, but a lot of people seem to. Am I wrong? Like, am I falling off? Am I no longer part of what supposedly is cool in hip hop? Because I remember the days where we dissed MC Hammer and Vanilla Ice, and now it just felt like certain artists were doing it wasn't about lyricism as much as it used to be. The beats weren't as hard as they used to be. I got told, listen, I was a kid. I got told, you can't do hardcore rap. You got to be commercial. All that stuff started really pouring in from people who were in the industry. And I fell out of love with it because I'm like, that's not what I got into this for. And I don't seem to be as successful as the artists that other people like that I don't. So I never quit. But my mentality changes. Like, I'm not really about this. And for those who follow my career, and maybe those who don't, what really got me back into it, God bless him, is Jay Dilla.
R.I.P.
Dilla, R.I.P. Jay Dilla. Dilla Pickles, my mixtape, which is still free on my Bandcamp, just me writing to Dilla beats. I didn't intend for it to be anything other than, I love these beats. This is what I want to rap to. And by the time I finished enough tracks, I'm like, I'm going to put this out. It's going to be a tribute to him. It's just a free project. It's his beats. It's not mine. And now it's like, this is why I started rhyming. So all the records thereafter kind of represent my sort of, second career in that I changed my mindset. Plus everything had changed too. Everything's on the internet now. We're downloading. We're not even doing that now. We're streaming. So music itself and the way that people consume music had completely changed. I had to start all over. It wasn't until an album ago that I was like, oh yeah, Spotify. Like I have to learn how to, create content for social media that creates links to the Spotify. Like everything has changed. Even though I still have these limited edition CDs and vinyl, like I get the industry's changed. So
let's talk about the album. Vigilante, why that title?
Yeah, man. Because I'm vexed, bro.
What are you vexed about?
Vigilante. Hold up this cover because I want to shout out Doug Knight, Cross-Eye Comics, who illustrated this cover. And I took this back to hopefully people taking in this album while looking at it. You remember the days of listening to an album and holding the record in front of you and like looking at it? Because this is an image of a Klansman being lynched, of him hanging from what looks like an AR-15, from him taking a selfie while it's all happening. Oh, wow. These are all topics that exist on the album. Everything from the way in which people use social media, gun violence, anti-black racism, self-hatred in the black community, jealous and mental health issues surrounding those and other topics really came to a head over the course of the pandemic. And because of that, I felt like I wanted to attack it and kill it. And it was really inspired because Dexter's last season came out, the New Blood season during the pandemic. I also got introduced to Death Note, the Japanese anime series. Both of the main characters of Dexter and Death Note are vigilantes. They are people who kill bad people. And I've always been enthralled by like revenge stories and vigilantism because as you guys know, the law is not always just. In fact, it's often not. And justice, there's been a lot of injustice.
Yep.
And all the injustice that we had time to sit back and watch throughout the pandemic, from George Floyd to Ahmaud Arbery to the too long list of names, made me say, I got to put pen to paper and discuss this from this mindset. And Vigilante is that mindset. I want to kill that kind of bullshit.
Why'd you go after Kanye on Cleanse Myself?
Okay, I love the question. Because Kanye's on some fuck shit. And I don't know why. I'm a Kanye fan. His first 4 or 5 albums, like I bought them all. Like I love that shit. I rated him over Jay. I'm like, yo, Kanye's brilliant. He's smart. He's this and that lyrically, in addition to his production. I love the concept of viewing this trilogy of albums surrounding the educational system failing us and college dropout. It was great.
Absolutely.
He was the guy who said, George Bush don't care about black people during a telethon or whatever it was. Now he's wearing MAGA hats and doing interviews with Alex Jones saying, I love Nazis. I quoted him directly. He said, there's so many things I love about Hitler. And I'm like, bro. You know, it's one thing to wear White Lives Matter t-shirts with Candace Owens, but when you say shit like that, I'm like, it has an impact. And it's some of the most the terrible things you can say, given that he's a black man, and it goes without saying that our community has suffered injustice for centuries. And when you side with white supremacists, you clearly, I say in the song, I go, viewing his mirror reflection, it seems his ass hates. From throne to alone, the change happened at a fast pace. Because he was on the throne. There's a reference to the Watch the Throne. But like, dude, we loved you. Yeah. And you've turned your back not just on your hip hop fans, but on your community. It is sad. And one of the reasons I thought, why should Danny O, some Canadian rapper most people haven't heard of, say anything about Kanye as a worldwide superstar? And I thought about it and I said, this is how I'm going to start the lyric. We're 2 days apart in real life in age. And I said, what right? I have every right to call a man out. You know what I mean? He could have been my brethren if we grew up in the same city. And I would tell this to my brethren. And that's why I had to go in on him, because it does come from a brother perspective in a way, but also, bro, I'm hella disappointed in you, man.
So you're not giving a pass with mental health and everything? Like, what if he's suffering a psychosis moment at the times?
There is a strong argument to be made that he's going through whatever he's going through. I don't know what that is. And I'm not going to sit here and say that no matter what, that's an excuse. Because, sure, you know what I'm saying? Like, he lost his mom. I lost my dad. I know the pain involved in that. Like, God knows what his life is like. Being in the Kardashian family. I don't know, right? But all I can do is judge a man on his actions. And, you know, he's been called out. It's not like me. I'm not the only one who called him out. When he did that TMZ thing and Van Lathan stood up and called him out and pressed him and said, yo, you're not making any sense. You're turning your back on your people. This is dangerous for our entire community. And Kanye has doubled down. I believe he's had the opportunity to assess some of these things. And you know, I don't know exactly what type of mental health issues could make you look at your own community and say, I side with the people who hate us.
Yeah.
So, you know, I feel for him and anybody dealing with mental. One of the songs on the album, Mismatch, contends with mental health issues. Like, we go through rough times. And I'm in support of anybody who needs, you know, support. But yeah, I personally can't make heads or tails of why Kanye went in the direction he went, regardless of his mental health issues.
Yeah.
And I don't know them well enough to comment it other than to say what I said in the record.
So you got Socrates on the album.
Yes, sir.
How'd you get him out of the house?
You know what, man? I think, thankfully, it's the OG card.
Yeah.
We've both been in the game a long time. I want to say Still Caught Up dropped in, 94? Hate Runs Deep, I think, was 94.
Damn.
Dear Hip Hop's 96. I was a fan before knowing him as a contemporary, so... But, of course, we've been in the game a long time. We drew, you know, we pulled out that 30-year card earlier. We were both part of it. So, thankfully, I was able to reach out to him and go, look, man, it's been a long time. I need you on a record. And he was with it. We went back and forth with a few ideas. And I'm so happy that he went in the direction that he went, because I want to credit him. Sober Sunday is the sole song on this album that didn't have a concept before I reached out to my guest. And he came up with it. And how he came up with it is I told him about the album concept. The album plays like a movie, has a beginning, middle, and end. I introduce the Vigilante. I go through all the shit we talked about. Then I come out on the other side a winner with spitting more bars, supreme barsman. And the album ends with a thank you. It's a thank you to my parents. And he, understanding the concept of the album, was like, let's go in this direction with what it's like on the, you know, when it's all, the dust settles and it's all like when the movie's over, you know what I'm saying? And you go home and he shouts members of his family. I said, that's exactly what we got to do to end this thing. And so I shout mom and dad while he shouts people in his family. And I think it's worthwhile to do such a record because, as we just finished saying, mental health is something that we all need support with. And I had to shout my folks for supporting me through my own tribulations.
Hearing him on this record, just made me miss his voice so much.
Completely agreed.
Man.
Yeah, I'm actually super honored, to be honest, because like you, huge fan. Like, I think the Big Black Lincoln album is like an absolute gem in the history of our country's music. His underground tapes. He's obviously a triple threat between rap and singing, producing. And yeah, his voice is so unique and so like as soon as you hear it, like, oh, that's a Sox tune, and you can hear the soul in it. And we could go on and on talking about the different records that he's done that are so soulful. So he brought exactly that to Sober Sunday. And I know there's people who hear this record and sing it because Sox brought that energy to it. And I'm in love with the record, man. It's sometimes I honestly, I'll hear it and I'm like, I know I'm listening to it's like I'm listening to a Socrates song, you know. And I'm so thankful because what it ended up doing, like I said, it's the only song on the album where I wrote my lyrics after my guest. So his hook inspired my lyrics, and I truly feel like it's some of my best writing because it's so personal, it's so deep. Tears flow when I write about my dad. This is my second time I paid tribute to my dad, who I lost in 2017. So he brought that out of me, you know what I mean? I got to credit him for that and say thank you for helping me basically write some of my deepest lyrics ever.
Was it natural causes with your dad, or?
Unfortunately, no. I lost him because a motorist hit him. He was a pedestrian.
Okay.
And something I actually haven't talked about publicly, but there's still like some
legal stuff
going on.
You don't want to hear about, on a tangent. It takes forever in this country.
It does.
For when it comes to that kind of stuff.
It really does. But I will say this. Let me throw a positive into this. Is that so? In the area, I grew up in North Scarborough, and in the area,
could you specify where in North Scarborough?
Yeah, I'm from Alton Towers. So Alton Towers.
Oh yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's like the other side of the street's Markham.
Yeah.
And you go further east, you're gonna hit Malvern. So like Alton Towers area in Scarborough, where I grew up, and there is a community center on the other side of the neighborhood. It's not that old, but it's been around long enough that they should have done this before. I went to and from school every day, taking the bus and crossing the street in a location where there's no crosswalk. The lights are way up on Steeles, or you got to go south to Alton Towers, and like there's a decent stretch of road where you're just running across the street. You come off the bus stop's there, the catwalk's on the other side. You wait for traffic and you run across. Damn. Everyone in my community's been doing that since when the community started, basically 30-something years ago. And my dad was coming home from the community center one night and had to be, unfortunately, the person who didn't make it home. There are now lights up. One of the first things I did, and I have to shout out Chin Lee, who was a city councilor, I believe, at the time, and my dad was at an event that he was speaking at. And I have to show him love because he reached out to my family knowing that someone had just left his meeting and passed, sadly. And I said, we need lights up here. People cross this street every single day. And to his credit, you talk about how long things take for legally. Thankfully, within a year, he had brought it in front of the city of Toronto at City Hall, bringing up my father's passing and everything. And I reached out to him. This was one of the first things I said to him. Even as I was mourning, like a day or two later, I'm like, we have to do something about this. And to his credit, he did. So I called them Tati's Lights. My dad's nickname was Tati. And so Tati's Lights right at the McCown and Steeles area are there to ensure no one ever dies, I hope, ever again.
Wow, wow.
So something came out of it, you know?
Wow.
Now, early this year, Killer Mike swept the Grammys.
Yeah, man.
At a tender age of 45.
Yeah. 48?
48?
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Now, we always hear hip-hop is a young boy's game. Mm-hmm. Him winning, did it give you some sort of like, like did it solidify, or did it?
Yes.
Yeah. It
big
made
time.
For real. It made you feel like, hey, there is.
Oh, huge. That's another thing we were discussing right before the cameras went live, man. Like, first of all, I want to address this hip hop is a young man's sport thing.
Let's go.
That's pure bullshit.
Yeah.
That's fuckery talk.
Yeah.
Here's why. Hip hop itself is now in its 51st year. 50 years ago, it was a young man's thing because hip hop itself was young, and everyone who got into it was part of the young people or youth movement. Hip hop has existed now 50 plus years. We are people who grew up with it, as did the many other artists who were out there who we got influenced by, the Chuck D's and the Ice-T's and the, you know what I'm saying, Nas, Eminem. We're talking about men in their 50s, some 60s. That's hip hop. Hip hop grew up, so did the people who are part of the culture. So this young man's game thing is nonsense because there's a space for them, right? Mm-hmm. The same way we were talking about how our parents hated our music when we came up and we kind of hate the music that the kids are listening to now. Listen, there's a space for them, but that's not hip hop. Here's hip hop. Here's your space. Yeah. We're allowed to have our space too. Mm-hmm. We grew up with this thing. So hip hop is here. It's all the artists that we've been talking about. It's Vigilante and Danny O and other artists from Canada. Mm-hmm. And it's also, okay, whatever you want to call this, you got trap and drill or whatever that is, cool. Mm-hmm. But don't act like it's all that there is. Yeah. Don't try and boot us out of the game as if somehow we didn't help to create everything that you have come into. Mm-hmm. So I think there's space for everybody, and we need to start looking at it that way. Even if we don't like the music, I don't say they shouldn't be doing it. You do it for your audience. Mm-hmm. We have an audience too. My audience is not the same audience going to play that kind of stuff, and vice versa. I don't listen to the shit, but you're allowed here. You're young, do it the way the young people do.
And also the fact that people, you know, in our realm, in our age group.
Well, you're much younger than us.
I am, but nonetheless, like I feel like you know, 30 and up. Yeah. People are paying for tickets. People are going to shows.
Yes.
And there's no problems at shows.
Right.
Whereas you know, the drill kids, the drill cats, the yacht music, they barely get shows. And if they do get shows, they're either canceled by cops, by officers, or whatever. Or you know what I mean?
Because there's a potential real life consequences.
That's right. That's right.
I think this is an opportunity for me to say two things. One, I'll speak to the cancellation of the shows. If you are part of this thing called hip hop, especially if you think it's a young man's game, understand that what you're supposed to be doing is entertaining, creating art, making music. If you're really in this about trying to, like, I don't know, rep for your set or your hood, or you come into place with gun in your pocket, like, bro, you're missing the whole point. Because when hip hop started, we talked about the message off air. When hip hop started, some of the earliest records were records about the poverty and the violence and the police brutality in the communities and trying to stop it and overcome it. There was vigilantes long before me. You know what I'm saying? So if you are about that life, that thug gangster life.
Gangster, yeah.
That's not what our culture is. So that's a problem. If you think that that's what it's about, if your bars can't help you and you're resorting to the gun, that's not hip hop. I'm sorry. Another thing that's not hip hop that's, I think, impacting these shows is these artists aren't putting a lot into the craft of emceeing. They are rhyming over their vocals when they go on stage. They don't have a mic, a certain cadence to understand how to have breath control and rap into that mic, even hold the mic properly and be an MC. This is old school, but I grew up on Rakim's line. To me, MC means move the crowd. Are you connecting with your audience? That's all my shows are, is the call and response that I grew up on. That's what hip-hop is. It's a back and forth. It requires both of us. Throw your hands in the air. Say ho. Like, that's hip-hop.
Yeah.
If you're not doing that, again, your section belongs to you guys, and you might be successful, and I congratulate you. But don't try and push us out, because that's not a hip hop thing. And if you're ruining your own shows by violence or lack of artistic ability, yeah. You know what I'm saying? That's why you have your section and we have ours, because that ain't what we're about.
I feel like a lot of the principles that we came up with in hip hop has been lost, you know, so the lyricism, the stage performance, even just caring about your pen, you know, I feel like people are comfortable with doing the bare minimum, and their credit, it's working if, you know, your objective is to make money and gain a certain level of fame.
That's exactly right. And that's why I congratulate them, because if that was your goal, you've accomplished it. You should be congratulated for that. That is good. Young men and women, especially of color, making money, good for you. That's great. Understand that that's what you're doing, and that should be celebrated, without going at old school hip hop artists or legends or anyone else who helped create the culture. It's almost like we're playing two different games. You're winning at yours. That's good. What we're doing over here is what we've been doing for 50-something years. Don't shit on that. That's the problem I have. There's space for all of us. We grew up in a world where I listened to De La and Public Enemy, NWA and Tribe Called Quest, Big Daddy Kane, and like so many different styles of music, styles of rhyming, styles of beats. I love the East and the West Coast. I love Snoop. I love DJ Quick's my favorite. I can't wait till DJ Quick comes up here with Snoop. When I heard he was touring with him, I'm like, yo, I'm going to see Quick. Like, that's my guy. And of course I can play Mobb Deep. Of course, you know what I'm saying? Like Wu-Tang, Nas. They all sound completely different from each other, and we accept them all as part of this hip-hop culture. When did it turn into, it's got to sound? Can you tell the difference between these artists?
No. You all sound the same
not today. Not today.
Between the production and the effects they put on their voice and their style of vocal, like I won't even call it rap.
I feel like it's been stagnant for the last 8 years.
Even the content, right? Because a lot of it is like, you know, is like their music is weaponized to attack whoever, right? So there's a lot of mention of ops and packs and spinning the block.
It's the same old thing, man. I've seen so-called hip-hop blogs and social media accounts say, oh, you know, and whose song is the hottest? And I will swipe through 10 of the same fucking song.
They all sound the same cadence, same everything.
I can't tell.
Yeah. I legit
and
can't tell.
I thought I had an ear for music, bro.
Well, you know what I like about nowadays, like some of the kids, what they're doing is they're remixing old '90s tunes and they're adding it into the drill, which is like I find a little bit creative, but you know it all sounds almost the same.
I don't think it's creative at all.
You know, look, man, I this is why I stand on this. Let them do their thing as long as it doesn't interrupt ours. Because we're always going to have, we talked about this before, we're always going to have opinions, right? Even as three hip hop heads, we'll probably have a discussion about greatest ever and disagree a lot. And I think that's some of the beauty of hip hop is that we can all love it so much that we care about the artists we like the best and argue about it till the death going, Jay-Z's better than Nas. No, Nas is better than Jay, and have those arguments. That's why I think we should be in a place where that's all allowed. You can be just as hip-hop and have different opinions. So if your opinion is you're into this kind of thing, have it and walk that route, no problem. But don't attempt to tell us that we don't belong. And I just gotta keep reiterating that because I think that's what we do sometimes as well is we fall into the, they're not hip-hop, they gotta get out of here.
I agree.
We can feel that as an opinion because we grew up on shit that don't sound nothing like that. And we can easily, it's not even an argument, we can easily go, they're not lyricists. Guess what? They don't wanna be. They know that. You know what I'm saying? I saw 6ix9ine, what's his name? Tekashi 6ix9ine.
Yeah.
I saw him do an interview once. And when the interview was done, I go, I respect this guy more for saying that.
He's honest.
He told Angie Martinez, he goes, I have never been in the studio once and said, man, these bars ain't hot enough. That's not his objective in the booth. He does not care.
He does not care.
So he owns it, knows what he's doing, and the annoying bullshit that he does, he knows his audience will dig it.
Yeah.
Let them dig it. He doesn't have to. He should never come up in a lyricist conversation. He doesn't even want to come up in a lyricist conversation, right? I think the problem is when you start talking about, so and so's whack. Like, who's dude who said Nas was irrelevant?
One of the new kids.
Was it 21 Savage? And then they did a record together.
21 Savage, yeah.
Yeah, and then they did a record together. I mean, good on them for doing that. You know, Lil Nas X comes out. People are like, what did you call yourself? Nas does a record with him. Like, I actually rate Nas for that. I don't like those records personally.
Yeah.
But I rate him for that because he's like, we talked about
because they cloned Nas.
But it's like, it's proof. It's like, not only can I hang with you guys, I'm going to do a song with you guys and murk you on it. Right? Yeah. So watch this 50-year-old guy destroy you because in my world, you guys don't belong there. In your world, I've now been introduced to people who wouldn't have heard me otherwise.
That's right.
So I respected him for it. And he's proven. Nas is a great example of someone who's proven. Don't talk to me about age. On his 50th birthday, he dropped his last album, another dope one. You know what I'm saying? Touring with Wu-Tang. Like, you can't stop hip-hop. Okay? So do whatever you want to do. I don't know how long it will last, but I know hip-hop's still here.
Would Daniel do the equivalent to that?
I don't see myself doing that.
No K-Money, Danielle feature?
I don't know who that is. Yeah. I doubt it also because I don't see the benefit in it for me. Nas is a big...
It could be a way of bridging the gap maybe between two generations.
Perhaps, but I think I'm also at a place in my life and in my career where it's like I know what my audience is. And see, I used to. Like when I was in my teens and 20s, I had a lot of advice. You got so-and-so's doing this. You got to sound like that. That beat's too hard. You got to be commercial. You're not going to get radio play. You hear all that. You see the artists who are doing well. Like I told you earlier, the artists that I'm not a fan of, but they're the stars. And do I make my music that way? I'm actually thankful that I didn't fall in that direction and then end up doing a record that maybe everyone hated, and then today I'm still trying to live it down. Thankfully, I've always been in control of the music that I've made. I own all my masters.
Stay true to yourself.
That's what's up.
And here I am all these years later. I just put out my best album, and I feel like it would be a disservice to, never mind just like my audience, to myself to go, oh, yeah, I'm going to do a record like that when I don't live that way. I don't sound like that. I don't want to. So I don't disrespect it, but it's just not me.
Got it.
It's the same thing with clothes, right? Like we all have things. You know, I've seen people wear stuff. It's like, we all love Andre 3000.
Yeah.
But we've all seen him wear stuff we wouldn't wear. You know what I mean? Back in the Outkast days. So like, be okay being you. And I think that was sort of the point of the Mismatch record and other songs that I've put out where it's like, once you're comfy in your own skin and you're comfortable, it's grown man things now. I'm like, I know who I am.
Exactly.
I'm okay with that. You know, listen, I'm into stuff people aren't into and vice versa, and I'm okay with it.
You're saying a bunch of things, and it's like, okay, Andre 3000, he does have a solo album, right? But could he be mentioned in rap's top 5 without a solo album?
Oh, shit.
Well, it's interesting you say that because he does have a solo album where he plays the flute the
Oh
whole
my
time.
God! Come
come on
Daniel.
now.
You know what I'm talking about.
I know what you're talking about, of course. But see, this is funny. I think it's still relevant to say because the Andre 3000 solo album is such a departure from anything remotely hip hop that he is the definition of I'm going to live my own space.
The Love Below, right?
You
talking about the Love Below?
No, but in fairness, the Love Below in a way kind of counts, right, as his project.
Were you referring to the flute as his own album?
Yes.
Oh lordy.
Because to Andre, if Andre was sitting here, he goes, "That's my new album," right? So I respect that he made that album. It's not. I don't listen to it.
I love the answer.
Right? Because the question was, does he still deserve to be in the top 5 of MCs? Right? That's your question. He still deserves to be in the conversation. That flute album doesn't take away any verse he's ever written and any bar he's ever spit. Some of the best shit I've heard, some of the blow my mind. One of my favorite three sack verses is on Anderson .Paak's album. It's the first song on the record.
Where he's talking to the shorty.
Yeah, that's the second song.
Yeah.
He does this. I don't want to do him a disservice by attempting it, but he is in a class of his own. He's one of those MCs who, when he's rhyming, only Andre can do that.
Absolutely.
When you hear him, it's like, that is Andre. If someone tries to do that, it's a bite. He belongs in a category of his own. So he still deserves, without a solo album, that conversation, to be in that conversation, because I think he's so unique and so clever. And we talked earlier about it's not just what you say, but like his pattern. He has styles of saying stuff on the beat that's just like no other rapper can do it that way. He'll pronounce it different sometimes on purpose, and it just sounds so ill. So yeah, he's more than deserving. No matter what record he ever puts out, like he's done enough to go, that's some dope shit.
Do you have a top 50?
Wow.
There has to be a top 50. I mean,
yes.
Right?
But I'm sure if I were to like even try to write it down right now, I know it would be difficult because I know who my favorites are. But anytime you have to stop at a number, we talk about top 10s, top 20, top 50. It feels like it gives you space.
Right.
I can name 50. And then you get to that 50 and go, oh man, wait a minute. There's all these other people I want to throw in there. So I could discuss it with you, but I know it would fluctuate.
Yeah, it's damn near impossible.
One conversation to the other.
Yeah. And then it's like, what's the criteria are you using to have your top 50?
I've had these conversations with people who will say stuff like, yo, is Pasta Noose in your top 50? I'm like, hell yeah. But we forget that when rappers are in groups, that's why Andre question was good. When rappers are in groups, we usually don't go, that's one of my top MCs. And Pasta Noose deserves that. He's got to be like.
Does he have a solo album?
Sorry?
Does he have a solo album?
No.
Yeah.
No. So this is interesting. Is your question about whether or not an MC has a solo album or not?
I feel like if you're gonna be
to be rated.
Yeah, I think you should at least have one solo body of work.
Did you like Pharoah Monch as a top MC before he went solo?
Absolutely.
Okay, so then that defeats your argument.
It does.
Because Organized Confusion is when he was. Both of them were crazy. Yo, that Distress album, lyricism for days.
Yeah.
You know, I want to pivot this conversation because you do what we do, and you've been seasoned in the media and like podcast game as well for like damn near 10 years now.
Longer. I haven't been doing a podcast for the past year and change or so, but my first podcast started in 2006. I don't even think we used the word podcast yet.
It was like an online
radio.
Online radio, yep.
It was called The O Show. And with my brethren, Big Daddy Donnie, who I started that show with, later started the Godfathers of Podcasting. Shouts to Notorious T.I.D., who's his partner on that. And they call it that because they were doing online wrestling radio in 96. So I don't know when podcasting started, but they've gone ahead and claimed it as the Godfathers of Podcasting. So I've been parts of both shows, founded both of them, although I don't do it right now.
No, the reason why I asked you that is because I wanted to like pick your brain a little bit. I mean, like, what were the highs and lows were you experiencing during the time on that in that journey? Because I know that was a different part of your artistry.
Well, it's actually an interesting question because it ties into what I was talking about before. When I quit, in the mid 2000s, so I told you like 2004 that album came out. 2005 I put out what I called a street CD / mixtape, which was subtitled The Last of Danny O. I had this idea that I was going to change even my name or whatever I was going to do. That obviously didn't pan out because, as I said, I have to keep it true to me. I couldn't pretend to be some other guy. I'm Danny O. This is what I do. But what I did do is find other facets of the world of art and entertainment that I did like, that I did enjoy and wanted to do. I started taking my acting more serious and started taking acting classes and got myself a talent agent. And I started that podcast in 2006. So that journey, was almost part of me kind of re-finding myself as an MC, because I've always loved entertainment, sports. I wanted to be a Blue Jay when I was a kid, bro. Like, I still do. So sports, music, movies, acting. I'd watch a movie with my brother, start acting out scenes. So it's always been there. It's always been a part of me and what I want to do. But doing all this other stuff, the acting, the podcast, it all brought me back to my first love. Like, I can't let this go. And so the Dilla Pickles thing came a few years after the O Show started, and then eventually I started a group record with Promise. Perfect Strangers is the name of the group, and fell right back into the music the way I felt like I had got into it, for the love of it. And that's why I stopped doing the podcasting, because it just brought me back full circle.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Who won, Drake or Kendrick?
I have been answering this question for weeks, and I'm going to tell you, both of them. They both won. And I'm going to tell you why. Because all anybody seems to still be talking about, what we're talking about, is Drake and Kendrick, I actually had people go, yo, you might want to hold back on your album, bro, because like Drake and Kendrick, like it's all Drake and Kendrick. Everything's Drake and Kendrick. And you know what? They have sides. Some of it's based on where you're from, Toronto versus LA. Some of it is based on, hip hop culture versus, we have all types of arguments for why one or the other won. And the more I hear people saying Drake, Kendrick, it keeps going back and forth. There's no clear winner, because they both got so much like notoriety off. It's not like they weren't big already, but everybody's talking about them. Now, if you really want to break it down, we talked earlier about
lyricism.
We talked about lyricism.
Yeah.
So when you judge it from a bar perspective, I think they both did a lot of really dope shit. Taste-wise, I've always leaned more to Kendrick, right? I'm a Toronto man, though, but taste-wise, I leaned more to Kendrick. And this is pre-battle. I'm talking about just his music. I love his music. Content-wise, we talked about the importance of content in lyricism. Well, Kendrick came out and started talking about this mysterious daughter that Drake supposedly has, and she doesn't exist. So you could argue that, yo, bro, you wasted verses on something that was completely not true. And I thought it was crazy when Drake came back and said, yeah, bro, you took the bait. You're a idiot for that. And, I thought it was funny. He said some really dope stuff, while Kendrick said some stuff that really didn't hold much weight. You know what I'm saying? So you could argue that the nod goes to Drake there. You could look at it just from a song perspective. Some people like the beats that was chosen. I thought it was really dope how, which record was it where Drake rhymed in 3 different ways over 3 different beats?
Family Matters.
Ooh, that shit is ill.
Yeah,
I thought that shit was dope. I saw a comedian today on Instagram talking about how annoying. Right? Like,
what's his name?
He's sick of Not Like Us, right? And I thought, I didn't think that was the greatest beat ever, but it's catchy as hell, so it turned into a club record. So we talked about this earlier, the way we judge things through different litmus paper. If you were looking at it from the club perspective, okay, Kendrick made the bigger club joint.
Yes.
Oh, he won because of that? Drake said things that were more in keeping with for example, Kendrick called him out on some pedo shit. Yeah. There's nothing factual that I'm aware of that's quite an accusation.
Absolutely.
And without any backup, that makes the bars weaker, right? So that's part of the argument. So, and I know I've seen you've got heavy. You're a pro Toronto man, and I know that.
I'm glazing, guys. I'm glazing.
And I'm with you because I'm Jays all day, and I'm on like Toronto or nothing. I think from that perspective, though, again, the realness of the bars, you might want to nod Drake's way.
Yeah, because there's so many layers and so many variables and so many perspectives.
Don't get him started.
And
oh, I've seen it. I've been seeing him.
Okay, so the idea of a diss record and people having, or a person having a better diss record, it seems like it's dependent on the amount of dirt you can get on a person, opposed to the actual formulation of
agreed.
bars.
And there's two ways to look at that. You could say that's the evolution of disc records, because we now live in a world where like information so readily available. We're all on social media. We can tap into so many different people and ways to find stuff where we couldn't before. And then the other way of thinking is, yeah, man, just come with bars, bro. Like, who's the better rapper?
Yeah.
Like, we used to do that, right?
Yeah.
Like, who won the battle? The better rapper. I like this rapper better than that rapper. So, you know, for example, when KRS was going at MC Shan and just saying that you're whack, and, you know, like, you know, like he's just calling you out on being a worse rapper than me, kept it that simple, and we judged him as such. Which was the bigger song, Bridge? Well, he said the bridge is over. And it's like, oh, you know, like then he's talking on where you're from, your crew, da-da-da. He took out, he got in that Marley and Roxanne on that record. We're going back to the 80s. Bridge is over.
Yeah.
So, of course, there a lot of time has passed, and you could look at disc records differently. Going back to being a barsman, we talked about that earlier. At the end of the day, I would usually lean towards the better bars wins. And I think, you know, again, my taste leans towards Kendrick when it comes to bars.
Yeah.
But then again, I'm more of a Nas fan than I am a Jay-Z fan. And I believe Jay-Z won that battle. And the reason why is he said some of the coldest shit to him.
Yeah. But it wasn't true.
Okay.
I'm joking.
Yeah,
I don't know. I don't know what's true.
Let's go to
leaving condoms in your backseat. That's not true.
That was the dirtiest thing ever. We don't know if that's true.
Exactly.
Yeah. But here's what was. When he did the One Hot album, what was the math he did? Every 4-year average.
Oh yeah.
You know what? You know why Jay-Z won?
Yeah, that was brutal.
Because here's why he won though. Because when he said that, you know what Nas did? Started putting out doper albums. He came with Stillmatic, bro. And Stillmatic was the dopest shit he had done since Illmatic. So it manifested itself in making Nas better. And Nas has since put out better material at a more consistent pace. And you could argue it's because Jay got to him.
Yeah.
Because at the time, remember, we all love Illmatic. And all of us were going, this isn't as good. This isn't as good. All those albums that came out after Illmatic. Yeah. Jay called him on it, made better records.
People are crazy because it was written as like up there.
Yeah, I don't hate it was written either. I don't.
I mean, Power, I Gave You Power and Shootouts.
For sure.
If I Ruled the World, oh my God.
Yeah, no, there's dope records on there, for sure.
Yeah.
But again, for example, when Cole, who bowed out of that battle pretty quickly, when he dropped 7-Minute Drill, in it he goes, oh, your first record was magic, your last one was tragic. I was like, no, it wasn't. What did Kendrick do that sucked? So the bars rang empty to me, and it's just like, I'm going to diss for the sake of dissing. That's why I think, like I said, the evolution, if you want to call it that, it could be an erosion too, because now it's turning into National Enquirer gossip column.
Yeah.
If we're going to do that, then rap is going to look weak. Maybe. But if what you're saying is true, those, to me, that counts.
And I think there's a world where you could get dirt on your opponent and still make it witty and clever.
Sure, absolutely.
You could definitely do that.
Yeah, absolutely.
I want to stay on that note with the National Enquirer tip.
Yeah.
When the Drake and Kendrick beef popped off, or when it was at the height, like a couple weeks ago, did like CTV or any of the mainstream Canadian people reach out to you, radio people reach out to you?
Nah.
Okay.
Nah, not at all. I don't think I'm of that ilk.
Seriously,
just yet.
I honestly, I would imagine you'd be on CTV every other fucking weekend.
For them to do that, they'd have to be tapped in, and
they are tapped in, dude. I was
listening
on the radio. Every other subject was the Drake and Kendrick beef.
No, that's not tapped in.
Yeah. I don't know. I might have just used
That's the biggest thing, like in pop culture.
Sure.
That's not being tapped in. Yeah.
Right, exactly. I think it might have been interesting. It might have proved that they were tapped in to get local MCs' opinions.
If they
they had Mastermind on the radio.
Right.
But Mastermind's an easy go-to.
True.
I think that's an obvious go-to. If
I don't know. I might have just used it to plug Vigilante. And
yeah. Like Cameron. I'm drinking this pink.
Isn't it crazy?
Juice.
But isn't it crazy that above all that, we had to use beef to put hip hop on the forefront.
Yeah, I see. That's a funny thing because you bring up news media. I also study news media, and you don't have to study news media to know that bad news is the most popular news, especially when there's a narrative. And the narrative always has been, and sadly seems to always will be, people of color are people to worry about.
Yeah.
And their thing, this hip hop culture thing, is negative. How do we portray that? We only talk about it when there's something negative to discuss. And we're going to put over this diss track as if to show you, here's two guys beefing. It's war. It's negative. These are the things that get mainstream coverage. When it comes to our culture, when it's bad, it's in the news. So that would be my issue with it. And I might even take the stance that, that's why I said I might plug Vigilante, because I'm like, there's other things going on in hip hop. And that's how I was feeling, because trust me, as an artist who was getting set to launch an album and all of this was going on, and that's all anyone was talking about, every day was like a mission to, I'm gonna put this out as far as content on social media or do an interview. I'm very appreciative of this, because this is the point. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's so much else going on. And anybody who gives me any love or any time of day and says, hey, this is another artist you should be paying attention to. I was on a conference call last night with DJs from the States. What was cool is that they knew some Toronto stuff. They mentioned a few artists. I know what's going on in Toronto. But, of course, they had to ask me about Drake and stuff like that. And that's cool and everything, but I'm appreciative of the fact that they had time for something else, especially from Toronto, bro. Especially. I've traveled throughout, like, the States and stuff. Where are you from? Toronto. Oh, that's Drake's. It's an automatic connection to Drake. And there's nothing wrong with that. He reps for Toronto. I always hail him for that. Love that he reps the city. But when it gets to a point where, and this is another thing that I was talking to you earlier about Toronto media. When motherfuckers in the States are coming out saying Toronto has no sound. This was the shit that pissed me off. Come from this diss battle, and now you got Mandem talking about Toronto doesn't have a sound. Toronto's sound is, what did he say, emo or R&B or
gothic, dark shit.
I'm like, that shows you have zero understanding of the history of Toronto and hip hop here. Because if you had any inclination whatsoever about anything that's ever happened in the city, you would lean closer towards its boom bap infused, its West Indian influence. Look how many West Indians are here that the music reached from Cardi to Ghetto Concept, you name it, man. Like, we have a strong Caribbean culture here. It's featured in my music. There's a lot of stuff you could say, but instead you don't know. And one of the problems is because some so-called Toronto hip-hop media is only talking about the bullshit. They're not representing the culture and letting the rest of the world know that Toronto is so much more than Drake. Love Drake, but guess what?
Yeah.
There's 3 million of us motherfuckers, and about a third of us rap. You know what I'm saying? But all jokes aside, it's like there's a lot of shit going on, and there's a history here. Yep. I don't need to tell you guys that, but for the rest of the world who doesn't know, I think it's as artists, podcasters, media, whatever, it's our responsibility to be like, yo, let me show you what Toronto's about. You guys assume this? Let me show you. And this is why I was like, no, I'm not taking a back seat to Drake and Kendrick. Like, good for them. They got shit going on. But guess what? My new album's coming out. That's what I'm going to discuss.
Boom. Okay.
Thank you.
Vigilante, baby.
Quick question. Who's in your top 5 of, let's see here, Canadian hip-hop first?
Ooh. I'm probably throwing Socks up there at the top because we said this earlier. Triple Threat. I love all those beats, bro. My brother is Choclair, but Flagrant is my favorite Choclair record. Boom, boom,
love that record.
That's a Socrates beat. So, man, Socks is... Are you going to make me do a top 5?
Please and thank you.
Socrates is in there. I don't want to take forever with this because there's different answers I can give for different reasons.
Ooh.
For example, Maestro Fresh West is the godfather of Canadian hip-hop because without him, I don't even think I would have... Like, I saw him on Electric Circus way before I was on Electric Circus. He performed Let Your Backbone Slide. I don't care who you are. If you know anything about anything in the history of Canadian hip-hop, Let Your Backbone Slide's a reason why a lot of us started rapping.
It's a Canadian national anthem.
It really is, man. And, geez, look at him still going today with all the different things he's got going on. Geez, I'm going to say my man Nish from the Monolith, who doesn't give himself enough credit because he's such a low-key dude. But anyone who, if you go on Spotify, Cedar Hill, that's his group with Landscape, the duo, Landscape producer, Nish MC, both from Monolith. It's the most bar-heavy, punchline-y. If you're into like those types of bars where it's like you laugh at the end of these bars, they're so killer, I put Nish in there, and he's on Supreme on my album. Nice way to segue into another plug, but yo, he's hella dope. I feel the same way about Corey D's, man. Like, he's got a solo album called Imago that came out in 2015, and he's a pattern MC. Like, I'm looking at that tropical vibe. He'll take tropical vibe and I'll stop you at 5 and the top. Like, he has his patterns are so like, I get jealous, bro. I'm like, guy, your patterns are crazy. You know what I'm saying? So I have to shout out Monolith.
You got two more.
I had 2 more. I got to shout out Monolith Mans because I feel we were slept on. I'm just gonna put that out there. I feel very slept on by that. Is it whack to put me as my number 1? No. So Socks, Corey, Nish. I want to shout out Mathematic.
You said Maestro.
Mathematic. Yeah.
I said Maestro because like we talked about this earlier. Like, what categories are we creating? Top 5. There's so many top 5s.
Yeah.
And Maestro influenced me as a lyricist, but as an influence, he's number 1 on the list. Another list is I'm combining this list here because I know we don't have all day. But when it comes to favorites, right? Like, I wouldn't put Socks on my favorite lyricist category, but my favorite artist, number 1.
Oh yeah,
I get it.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I could listen to Big Black Lincoln. I could listen to anything he's dropped from front to back and love it without discussing bars necessarily.
Got it.
Not to say he doesn't have bars.
It's like Kanye West. He goes in the artist category.
Right.
I'm waiting for his next album, like whatever he comes up with, whatever he's doing now, whatever he's working on.
Well, I will tell you this. After working with him on Sober Sunday, man, I just was like, I heard it and was like, man, you still got it. Like, that's exactly what I was looking for. I didn't even realize. He even came to me. He was like, do you mind if I do more? I'm like, hell yeah, do more. So he did the hook first. Then he added the verse at the top of the song. I'm like, you asked? Hey, go do more, man. So what did I say? I said Socrates, Maestro, Nish. Corey, and I'm going to say Mathematic.
Nice.
Bang, bang.
Dope. Do we want to go America?
Yeah, let's go American.
Do we want to go across the border?
I said I have to because my holy trinity of rap is Big Daddy Kane, Cool G Rap, and Rakim. And now I'm forced to round out a top 5. Earlier we had this big conversation of why Eminem's such an insane lyricist. So if we're discussing lyricism, I'm putting him in,
All right.
and I'll round it out with Black Thought.
Wow.
Ooh.
Although I want to say Big Pun, rest in peace.
All right.
We discussed him too.
No biggie.
Down in the little Italy.
Not in my top 5.
Okay. Woo. That's a clickable moment.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, this has been episode 554 with Steady Mobbin.
Great conversation. I mean, we don't even have enough time.
Oh,
like,
man,
there's so many directions.
We could do several volumes of this.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah.
But we really want to plug out Daniel's album.
Yes, sir.
Actually, I'll put it in the edits.
It's right over here. It's called the Vigilante rather.
Yes.
It has a lot of the names that are working in the city, and Decisive's on there, which is pretty cool.
Yes.
I'm glad you got him on there.
He deserves a mention too, no doubt.
That boy's a monster.
Yeah, he is a monster.
Yes.
He's like, yeah, it's crazy. Well, that's a different conversation.
Yeah.
Great project.
Thank you very much, man. I appreciate you both. I'm so appreciative to. I watch what you guys do and I love it, so I'm glad to be here.
Oh man.
But also, as I continue to say, this is the most work I've ever put into an album. My heart and soul was put into it, and it is the best record I've ever done.
How can people get it?
Yes, Vigilante. So Vigilante is available through UrbNet and Fontana North Distribution and Fat Beats. So if you want to purchase a CD or a vinyl, you can go directly to danio.com, dan-e-o.com, urbnet.com, or fatbeats.com and buy it. It should be in stores, and if it's not, you can order it. But, of course, it's digitally available, too, and it's streaming everywhere. So for everybody on Spotify, Apple Music, and the like, punch it in, Danio Vigilante. It's out right now. I don't think
I've held a CD in like 20 years. Holy! This is weird.
All right, baby. This is Black Mob, and over here I got...
This is Glory.
And on to the far right we have...
Oh, your bro Danio, the Vigilante.
And we out. Episode 554.
All right.